The Flyer captain.
Welcome, everybody, to the Puck Drops here. And to this episode of Revisiting, we will begin to talk about the Philadelphia Flyers, the 2010 Eastern Conference champions, and what a season they had. This was a team that had made the playoffs the last 2 years in a row, 3 years of 4 from the sixth season. But in this season, they barely made the playoffs off of a game with the New York Rangers where the winner would clinch a playoff spot automatically and self-eliminate the other. And the Flyers won on a shootout attempt with the game winner by a young elite forward they were bringing up in Claude Giroux. You look at their roster anyway, and they would make the playoffs, go on an improbable run to the Stanley Cup final. On the offense, of course, Aaron Asham, a winger that they had that they liked a lot. Blair Betts was another center that was good for them. Danny Briere in his second year as a Flyer, the former Sabre. Dan Carcillo, who is a former Blackhawk and another winger that played well with them. Jeff Carter, their big-time center that was growing into an intensely effective player for them. Riley Cote, Simon Gagne, who had been with the Flyers since the early 2000s. Claude Giroux, another center that I had said was elite and coming into his own. Scotty Hartnell, a bruising winger with tons of offensive skill as well as defensive ability. John Kalinske, David Liberte, Ian Lapierre, V.A. Leno, Andres Nodi, Darryl Poe, Mike Perala was another great player, and their captain, and Mike Richards, a big Mike Richards with so much speed, size, and skill, was the leader of this hockey club. Jared Ross and a young James Van Riemsdyk. On defense, they had Oscar Spature, Matt Carl, big Braden Coburn. The Spokane native was a big piece on their defense. Lucas Krashek, Ryan Parent, the leader of the defense, and former Duck, Oiler, Blue, and Whaler in Chris Pronger. Danny Seivert was another good defenseman. Emo Timonen, as well as Ole Christian Tolfsen. And Emo Timonen became an integral part of their defense as well. In goaltending, they had a lot of goalies, and starting with Ray Emery, the former Ottawa man, along with John Backlund, Jeremy Duchesne. But late in the season, Brian Boucher showed that he was the starter and he was the leader in goaltending for the Philadelphia Flyers, and would start so until he was injured later in the playoffs in Game 3 against the Boston Bruins in the second round. And Michael Leighton would take his place and set off an inspiring run where he would play all the way into the Stanley Cup final and later get the starting job into the next year as well. The standings of the Philadelphia Flyers, where they had one division and they were high in their division. This year, they were 7th in the Eastern Conference, 3rd in the Atlantic Division, the last team in the Atlantic Division to make the playoffs at 41, 35, and 6. With that, they would end up having the 7th seed and playing the number 2 ranked team in the Eastern Conference, the only one behind the Washington Capitals, and the 2-seeded New Jersey Devils. So this would start to be a 5-game series, and they would go to the new arena in its first year in Prudential Center to play the Devils in Newark. New Jersey were able to get 24 shots on Boucher. Philadelphia only had 14 shots, but they made the most of them, scoring 2 goals past Brodeur, and the Devils only getting 1 goal past Boucher. In the first period, there were no goals, but 9:25 in, Chris Pronger made it 1-0 Flyers on a power play. Mike Richards, 16:27 into the second, made it 2-0 Philadelphia, and Richards' goal would be the game winner. With less than 3 to go into the third, Sajak would cut the lead in half for the Devils, but that would be all, and Philadelphia would take a 1-0 series lead heading into Game 2. Home court would be served in Game 2 for the New Jersey Devils, and they went all on the Philadelphia Flyers. With 33 shots on goal, New Jersey was able to pepper Boucher and get 5 goals out of it, where the Philadelphia Flyers only got 3. 2:45 into the first, on a shorthanded attempt, the Flyers had a power play chance. The puck went off the stick, and Elias went away with a break coming on the left side and played until Parise was able to get the puck and shift it off the blocker side of the Philadelphia goaltender Brian Boucher, which was the first time in all of in the whole series that the Devils would score first. Aaron Asham would tie the game for the Flyers, 9:33 in at 1-1. Then in a power play goal, Giroux, 15:30 in, would make it 2-1 Flyers. The second would start, and the Devils would find a way there. Colin White would make it a tie game by passes from the first-time Devil Ilya Kovalchuk and Mato. 13:25 in, the Devils would take the lead on a power play. Andy Green got the puck and shifted it under the legs. Pronger would get his second goal of the playoffs with less than 2 in the second period on a power play to tie the game. And then the eventual game winner, 15:56 into the third period, by Daniel Subras, his first goal of the playoffs. And then Ilya Kovalchuk, with 33 seconds left, would slide an empty netter in to make it 5-3 Devils and tie the series. Game 3 was the real breaker, the second one-goal game that was final in this series. And the Flyers and Devils knew that the winner of this game would have a huge advantage in the entire playoff series. This one went to a fourth period, and the Flyers, through those periods, were able to get 34 shots on Marty Brodeur, scoring 3 of those shots. New Jersey had 19 shots on the goalie Boucher and scored 2 of them, but not able to win. 7:15 in for the second straight game, the Devils struck first. Brian Rolston to make it 1-0 Devils. 8:49 in, Claude Giroux, his second goal of the playoffs, scored on a power play, making it 1-1. Mike Richards gave the Flyers back the lead. The play by Carcillo, 1:15 into the second period. And then Rolston got his second goal of the game with less than 4 to go in the second, making it 2-2. There would be no goals in the third. And then as the puck was moved around, 3:35 in, by a great pass by Pronger to Gagne to Richards, Richards slid the puck across, and Brodeur thought he had stopped it on his left side, but while he didn't fully move to his right, and with an open space in the net, Carcillo was able to reach down low, poke the puck past the leg of Brodeur, and he would be tackled at center by the Philadelphia Flyers. An immense celebration, and Philly, the underdog story, they had a 2-1 series lead heading back to Game 4 in Wachovia Center, where the Flyers would attempt to get a stranglehold back of the series. Philadelphia had 28 shots on goal on Brodeur in this game, and New Jersey again had a large amount of shots with 31 on Boucher, but only scored once, and the Flyers were intense with their offense, scoring 4 times. 12:24 in, for the third time in 4 games, the Devils struck first. It was Kovalchuk on a power play. 9:08 in, Jeff Carter tied the game on his power play. 7:27 into the second, Briere made it 2-1 Flyers. 4:10 into the third, Carcillo opened the lead even more, 3-1, and ensured that Briere's goal would be the game winner. And 9:28 into the third, Carter got a great goal on Brodeur, giving the Flyers a 3-1 series advantage, a 4-1 win, and headed up to Prudential Center with a chance to close the series. And in this series, Boucher was brilliant. 28 shots by the New Jersey Devils. He stopped every single one of them. The Flyers had 21 shots on Marty Brodeur, and they were absolutely able to make it work. Again, a quick start for Philadelphia. 3:16 in, the second goal of the playoffs for Danny Briere on a power play, making it 1-0 Flyers. 11:48 into the second, Claude Giroux made it 2-0 Philadelphia. And 13:47 in, less than 2 minutes later, on a power play, second power play goal of the game, Claude Giroux made it 3-0 Flyers, his 4th goal of the playoffs. And Philly closed out the Devils and headed on to the second round. There they would place a series with a team they hadn't played since the 1970s in the 6-seeded Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins had just upset the Buffalo Sabres, their division winners, in 6 games in the playoffs the previous round. But even though they were a low 6 seed, they were higher than the Flyers. So game 1 would start in TD Garden for that second round meeting. And this was a classic, an absolute classic with the Boston Bruins and the Philadelphia Flyers. In the first period, 2:39 in, Steve Bajan made it 1-0 Boston. 12:54 into the first period, Bergeron, with his third goal of the playoffs, made it 2-0 Bruins, and the coach Peter Laviolette still kept in the goaltender Boucher. 7:38 into the second period, the Flyers got their first goal of the series. Ryan Perrant's first to cut the lead in half. Then 11:43 in, Miroslav Shatan got a power play goal to make it 3-1 in favor of the Bruins. Chris Pronger, 15:48 in on a power play, made it 3-2, and then that would end that 3-2. 7:25 into the third, David Krejci would make it 4-2 in favor of the Bruins. They continued. Then Mike Richards, 12:37 in, would cut the lead to 4-3, and for the first time, the Flyers would be able to tie the game 16:38 in by another goal by Danny Briere. With that being done, and 46 shots into an overtime on Boucher, 36 shots on the goaltender Rask for the Bruins, the puck would be placed along after 4 and 5 brilliant saves by Boucher. The puck would be placed off the wall by Chara off a second shot, which was sticked aside by Boucher, and the puck went right into the wheelhouse of Marc Savard on the right side circle, who ripped it top shelf under the bar on Brian Boucher, making it 5-4 Bruins in overtime and a 1-0 series lead for the Boston Hockey Club. Then the series would go again to TD Garden for game number 2, the Bruins trying to take a commanding 2-0 series lead on the Wachovia Center. 5:12 into the first, Johnny Boychuk made it 1-0 Bruins. 17:06, Mike Richards tied the hockey game at 1-1. In the second period, 9:31 in, Miroslav Shatan made it 2-1 in favor of the Bruins again. And then with only 25 seconds remaining in the second period, Danny Briere tied the hockey game for the Flyers. And in the third period, there was no scoring for Philly, but the Bruins got their game winner with 2:57 left in the third period. A great puck thrown to the side by Milan Lucic, which would end the game and win the game for the Boston Bruins. 26 shots on Tuukka Rask, and he saved everything with 2. And Boucher had 24 saves, equally brilliant, but the Flyers just were not able to win. Flyers, knowing they needed to win game number 3, went to Wachovia Center with an absolute need of a win. And the Philly Flyers got the first goal for the first time all series. Aaron Asham, his second goal of the playoffs, first since the New Jersey series, 2:32 in, made it 1-0 Flyers. Blake Wheeler, 4:11 in, the rookie, future Jet, tied the game for the Boston Bruins. And then 5:45 in, Miroslav Shatan came across the side and ripped it short side on Brian Boucher as the play was happening. But two things ended up happening around this point. Number one, there was a huge hit which sidelined a huge hit by Mike Richards, the captain, on David Krejci, which sidelined Krejci, who was an excellent scorer for the rest of the series, as well as a hit in the crease later in the hockey game on Brian Boucher, and Boucher was taken directly out of the game. At that point. and putting in Michael Leighton, who would later come in the next game. John Backlund was put in later. And so these would effectively completely affect the series. But still it was all Bruins. 2:30 into the second period, Mark Recchi on a power play made it 3-1 Boston. And an empty net with less than 2 to go. 1:56 left. 1:52 left. Patrice Bergeron on empty netter made 4-1 in favor of Boston. And Rask was faced with 34 shots. He saved a large amount of them, and the Bruins took a 3-0 series lead. Then it went to game number 4. The Bruins were up 3-0, and the Flyers were facing elimination for the first time all year in the playoffs. At that point, only 2 teams had got past an 0-3 deficit and gotten all of those wins, and those were the 1978 New York Islanders and the 1934 Toronto Maple Leafs. So the Boston Bruins, 15:37 into the first period, knew they needed to close out. So they tried. Mark Recchi made it 1-0 Bruins. Then with 54 seconds left in the first period, Danny Briere's 5th goal of the playoff year tied the game at 1. Michael Ryder, 10:56 in his first year as a Bruin, piped the puck to make it 2-1, and then Chris Pronger scored to tie the game for the Philadelphia Flyers at 2. And then Claude Giroux, 8:35 in, would make it 3-2 Flyers. 3:49 into the third, Milan Lucic tied the game at 3 for the Boston Bruins. Then 14:20 in, Villaleno gave the Philadelphia Flyers a 4-3 lead. And then with 32 seconds left, Mark Recchi went low side right by the post for the Boston Bruins to tie the game at 4. It would go to an overtime period, and for the first time all playoff long, Simon Gagne for the Flyers had appeared in the roster. And as the puck was being placed off the wall, with the 34th shot of the evening, it went directly to a misdirection to Simon Gagne right under the post, and the Philadelphia Flyers got their first win of the series and headed back to TD Garden for game number 5. Tuukka Rask faced 34 shots, saving 29 of them, and Leighton had 37 shots on him, saving 33 of them. Did Michael Leighton, the goaltender for the Philadelphia Flyers, the new one due to the Boucher injury. Then it would go to TD Garden for game number 5, with the Bruins still trying to find a way in order to take down the Flyers and move on to the conference final for the first time since 1990. Villaleno, 6:41 into the first period, though, made it sure for the Flyers, 1-0. 11:16 into the second, Scotty Hartnell made it 2-0 Flyers. 17:53 into the second, Simon Gagne made it 3-0 Philadelphia. And 6:48 into the third, Simon Gagne made it 4-0, and that would be all. Tuukka Rask had 27 saves on 31 shots in a losing effort, and 21 shots on Leighton made it a win and a victory for the Flyers. Heading back to Wachovia Center, they still were trying to stave off elimination, but they had just won 2 straight games, and it was starting to look like an absolute miracle might have happened. To the first period again, the Boston Bruins were shut down in Game 6. 6:58 in, Mike Richards, the captain, scored his 5th goal of the playoffs and his 2nd goal in the series to make it 1-0 Philadelphia. Then 16:20, a power play goal for Danny Briere, his 6th of the year, made it 2-0, and that would end that hockey game. Actually, excuse me, no. With a minute left in the third period, Milan Lucic finally got a goal past Leighton, but Leighton was incredible. He had 31 shots on him, saving 30 of them, where Tuukka Rask was pretty good too. 27 shots, 25 saves. on the amount of shots that the Philadelphia Flyers were pouring on him. But the Flyers were able to finally get that victory and head on to Game 7. They had come back from 0-3 down, and you started to see maybe this team was a team of destiny. And for the first time all series long, though, the Boston Bruins, for the first time since those 3 wins, would score first. Michael Ryder, 5:27 in on a power play, made it 1-0 Bruins. 4 minutes later, Milan Lucic made it 2-0 Boston, and 14:10 in, Milan Lucic made it 3-0 Bruins. They were up 3-0, and the Flyers were down in a 3-0 series hole. Now they were down in a 3-0 goal hole. 17:12 in, James Van Riemsdyk scored the first goal for the Flyers, and the first period ended 3-1. 2:49 into the second, Scotty Hartnell cut the lead to 3-2. And 8:39 in, Danny Briere made it 3-3, going back to the third period. And the guy that had changed this entire series around, Simon Gagne, gets the game winner, the series winner, 12:52 in on a power play. And 27 shots on Tuukka Rask, but he just wasn't able to crack the Flyers in this game. Leighton had 25 shots on him, saving 22 of them. And an incredible game, an incredible comeback for the ages. For the third time in National Hockey League history, a team came back from 0-3 down. It was the Flyers, and now they headed to the conference final. But the idea was once they had the conference final, they were worrying that they would face a team that they had not beaten in the last 2 years, which were the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's who they thought they were going to face. But the Pittsburgh Penguins lost to an 8 seed, which had never happened in a conference final, a 7 versus an 8. They had had a 7 versus a 6 before, but that was in 2003 with the Mighty Ducks in the Wild. Nothing had happened like this ever. And so the Philadelphia Flyers, for the first time and only time all playoff long, in facing the 8-seeded Canadiens who had gotten past the Capitals and Penguins, would have a home ice throughout the series in the playoffs, the Eastern Conference Final. And so Game 1 held in the Wachovia Center was absolutely all Philadelphia Flyers. The Montreal Canadiens had 28 shots on goal on the goaltender Leighton, but the Flyers had 25 shots on the goaltender in Yaroslav Halak. Braden Coburn, 3:55 into the first, his first goal of the playoffs, a power play tally, made it 1-0 Philly. 30 seconds into the second period, Van Riemsdyk made it 2-0 Flyers. 4:23 into the second, Briere made it 3-0 Flyers. And then Simon Gagne, 9:53 into the second period, made it 4-0 Philadelphia on a power play goal. It was already 4-0. And then 12:13 into the third, Scotty Hartnell scored his third goal of the playoffs, second goal of the game, making it 5-0. Or first goal of the game, 5-0 Flyers. 13:26 into the third, about a minute later, Giroux's sixth goal of the game, goal of the playoffs, made it 6-0 Philadelphia. And that fully impacted game number 1 and made it 1-0 Philadelphia. Then game number 2, and a shutout for Leighton, of course. Game number 2 was almost the same story. Montreal had 30 shots on goal, overtaking the Flyers by 7, but didn't score a single one of them. Leighton was incredible. The Flyers had 23 shots on goal, but they got 3 past the goaltender Halak, who had been incredible against the Capitals and especially against the Penguins in the previous round. 4:16 into the first, his 9th goal of the playoffs, the leader with a power play goal, Danny Briere, made it 1-0 Philadelphia. 15:49 into the second, Simon Gagne made it 2-0 Flyers on a power play goal. And 24 into the third, V.A. Leno, by passes from Grashik and Pronger, made it 3-0 Philadelphia. And another shutout gave the Flyers a 2-0 series lead heading to the Bell Center. They looked for a sweep, but they would not get one in this hockey game, as Montreal ended up getting 38 shots on Leighton, and they got 5 of them past him. The Flyers got 26 shots on Halak, scoring 1 of them. 7:05 into the first, the great story and series of Michael Camilleri continued for the Canadians, lighting up the Bell Center, making it 1-0 Montreal. Tom Pyatt, 16:52 in, made it 2-0 Canadians. Dominic Moore, 11:33 into the second period, made it 3-0 Canadians. And 2 minutes into the third, the former Devil, Brian Gionta, made it 4-0 Canadians. The only goal scored by Simon Gagne, 8:22 into the third, his seventh goal, made it 4-1. The Flyers were on the board, but an empty netter by Marc-Andre Bergeron with 31 seconds left made it 5-1 on a power play for the Canadians. And that would put the Habs back in the series. Game 4 in the Bell Center, though, would be back to the same script for Philadelphia. The Canadians would only get 17 shots on the goaltender Leighton. He stopped all of them. The Flyers would get 25 shots, a decent amount, on Halak. But all of those, 2 of those went in, and 1 goal was on an empty net. 5:41 into the second after a scoreless first. Claude Giroux shut up the boisterous Bell Center crowd, making it 1-0 Flyers. 14:53 into the second, Villaleno made it 2-0 Philadelphia. And then with 1:13 left in the third period, Giroux made it 3-0 Flyers. And the series back in Wachovia Center, the Game 5, the Flyers trying to close out and go to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time since 1997. The Flyers had 26 shots on Halak, and they ended up scoring 4 of them. The Canadians had 2 shots on goal on the goaltender. They had 2 goals, 27 shots on goal on the goaltender Leighton, but he stopped all but 2 of them, 27 shots, and he was immense as well. 59 seconds into the first period, Brian Gionta made it 1-0 Canadians. 4:25 into the first, after a lack of communication, as Claude Giroux ripped the puck down the boards, Mike Richards chased after it, and Halak ran into his teammate. It went right to Richards, who backhanded it to the goal to tie the game. Aaron Asham, 3:07 in, made it a 2-1 Flyer lead. 4:13 to the second, Carter made it 3-1 Philadelphia. Scott Gomez cut the lead to 3-2. And then with 13 seconds, with 23 seconds left in the third period, Jeff Carter got an empty netter at the Coronation, and the Flyers won the Eastern Conference for that long amount of time. Then they would go to the Stanley Cup Final to play another team that had a huge drought in the Chicago Blackhawks. There they would go to the United Center, and this was a hugely high-scoring game. 6:38 into the first, Villaleno made it 1-0 Flyers, giving the Philadelphia team the lead. But then 7:46, about a minute 15 seconds later, Troy Brouwer tied the game 1-1 for the Chicago Blackhawks. Scotty Hart, 11:50, in a shorthanded goal, David Bolland made it 2-1 Blackhawks. Scotty Hartnell, 16:37 in, tied the game at 2-2, and then with 27 seconds left, Danny Briere made it 3-2 Flyers heading into the second frame. 1:11 in, Patrick Sharp, the former Flyer, tied the game for Chicago. Blair Betts, 7:20 in, made it 4-3 in favor of the Flyers. 9:31 in, Christopher Stieg tied the game for the Blackhawks 4-4. 15:18 in, Troy Brouwer made it 5-4 in favor of the Blackhawks. Aaron Asham, 18:49 in, 1:11 to play in the second period, tied the game at 5. Then 8:25 in, Tomasz Kopecky made it 6-5 Blackhawks, and Kopecky's goal, the game winner. There were 32 shots on Antti Niemi for the Blackhawks. He stopped 27 of them, and 32 shots on Michael Leighton, and he stopped 15 of them in the losing effort. Game number 2 was far more collected and far more reserved in a 2-1 hockey game. This, again, the home team would reign victorious in the United Center. 1709, Marian Hossa trying to win his first Stanley Cup. His third goal of the playoffs made it 1-0 Blackhawks. In 17:37 into the second period, about 28 seconds later, Ben Eager made it 2-0 Blackhawks. And it was a shutout for Antti Niemi. 5:50 into the third period on a power play. Simon Gagne cut the lead in half. And so Eager's goal being the game winner. Niemi stopped 32 shots. He had 33 on him, only letting one goal in. Michael Leighton had 24 saves on 26 shots. And the Blackhawks took a 2-0 series lead going back to Philadelphia. Philadelphia had come through an 0-3 deficit, but Chicago was a more experienced team, more reserved, so they knew that they needed to play at the top level. Once again, now for the first time all series, 14:58 in, the Flyers would score first. Danny Briere, his 11th goal of the playoffs. 2:49 into the second, the wonderful defenseman for the Blackhawks, Duncan Keith, would tie the game. 9:55 into the second period, the Flyers would get the lead again by Scotty Hartnell's power play goal. Brett Sopel, 17:52 in, would tie the game for the Philadelphia Flyers. His first goal of the playoffs, first playoff goal since he was a Vancouver Canuck. And 2:50 into the third period for the Blackhawks, Patrick Kane would give them a 3-2 lead, 2:50 in. And then 3:10 into the third, Villaleno would tie the game for the Flyers at 3-3. As Briere took the puck across center in the overtime period that would come, he was able to play the puck and shoot it over the middle, and it was quietly deflected in front of Antti Niemi by Claude Giroux, giving him some overtime magic and bringing the Flyers back into the playoff series. Michael Leighton had 24 saves on 27 shots, and Antti Niemi 28 saves on 32 shots, but the Flyers would win. Back to Wachovia Center they would go, with the Flyers trying to tie the series, heading back to the United Center. That they would end up doing. 4:35 into the first, Mike Richards would score first for the Flyers, his 7th goal of the playoffs. 14:48 into the frame, it would be a 2-0 Flyer lead by a great goal by Matt Carl. Patrick Sharp, 18:32 in, would cut the lead in half, but then with 37 seconds left in that third period, the Claude Giroux would make it 3-1 Flyers. Then it would go to the third period, 6:43 in, Villaleno would make it 4-1 Flyers. Dave Bolland, 2:01 in, would make it 4-2. Then Brian Campbell, his first goal of the playoffs for the Blackhawks, 15:50, would make it 4-3, and the Blackhawks would cut the lead. And then Jeff Carter, 25 seconds remaining, got an empty netter, his 5th goal of the playoffs, to make it 5-3 for the Philadelphia Flyers. 26 saves, 30 shots for Antti Niemi, 34 shots, 31 saves for Michael Leighton. And Philadelphia tied the series, heading back to the United Center for game number 5, a best of 3. But this was an absolute epiphany for the Chicago Blackhawks. They had 3 goals in the first period, and Philadelphia had nothing. 12:17 in, Brent Seabrook on a power play win at 1-0 Blackhawks. 15:26 in, Dave Bolland made it 2-0 Chicago. 18:15 in, Chris Versteeg made it 3-0 Chicago. Into the second period, 32 seconds in, Scotty Hartnell would finally score for the Flyers. But then 3:13 in, Patrick Kane would make it 4-1 in favor of the Blackhawks. 4:38 in, Guimo Tiemann would make it 4-2. 6:36, James Van Riemsdyk would make it 4-3. Flyers were coming back, but then 15:45 in on a power play in the second period, Dustin Byfuglien would make it 5-3. Then the third period would start, and 16:08 in, Patrick Sharp would make it 6-3. Simon Gagne, 17:24 in, would make it 6-4. But then 17:55 on an absolute empty net because they wanted to pull Leighton immediately. Byfuglien would grab the puck, and he would stifle it in for his second goal after the Patrick Sharp goal of the game, making it 7-4 the final. Niemi had 27 shots on him, 23 saves, and Boucher had 23 shots on him, and he would have 17 saves, and that would give the Chicago Blackhawks a 3-2 series lead, and it would go back to Wachovia Center where the Flyers hadn't lost at all playoff long, with the chance to stave off elimination and go to a Game 7 back in the Windy City. And once again, the Blackhawks would score first. 16:49 on a power play. Byfuglien, his 11th goal of the year, made it 1-0 Chicago. With 27 seconds left in the period, Scotty Hartnell on the power play made it a tie game. 9:58 into second period, 8 minutes into the second period, Danny Briere made it 2-1 in his 12th goal for the Flyers. 9:58 in, Patrick Sharp made it 2-2. And then Andrew Ladd, 17:43 in, gave the Blackhawks a 3-2 lead. With less than 4 to go, 3:59 remaining in the third period, Scotty Hartnell got his second goal of the game, tying the game for the Philadelphia Flyers. And then it would go to overtime where there were 24 shots on Antti Niemi with 21 saves and 41 shots on Leighton. He made 37. And what would happen is the puck was thrown across the boards on the left side of the wall, and as Emil Tiemann was trying to back check on a running Taves, the puck got crossed across to Patrick Kane, and with Tiemann on him, Patrick Kane threw a shot off his weak-sided skate right to the stick side of a diving Michael Leighton, and Kane was never able to see the puck, as was no other Flyer or Blackhawk. But in not seeing it anymore, he tried, as was said, to sell it. He didn't see the puck, tried to sell it, and threw his gloves off and started celebrating and tackling Antti Niemi. And it was later seen that the puck went to the very right side of the net under the side of the leg of Michael Leighton, making it 4-3 in overtime, Chicago, and a series winner for the Blackhawks and a Stanley Cup for the first time since the 1960s. So that was a huge deflation for the Flyers, who this would be their second to last year past the second round. Actually, not even to the second round. And they have not been the same since. They really haven't. But what a year it was, and what a magical team. And it's important to remember these Flyers and what could have been, but what has been. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. The next one we're going to do is revisiting, and I will in some time, I have to check when I'm going to do them, but I will do some revisitings of 90s teams and 80s teams. But it is important. The next one we will be doing the revisiting of a team that I think should have won the championship, the 2011 Vancouver Canucks. We'll do that next as soon as possible. Hope you enjoyed this video, and happy hockey.